Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a little news roundup video, and initially we're going to start with some very intriguing plans. So we're kind of winding back the clocks a little bit because we've got some new information with regards to what Zack was building with the Snyderverse. I mean, I know we've known about it for a while where things would have gone, but it turns out that there could have been someone behind a lot of the events that took place in the Snyderverse to lead up to Darkseid's invasion and beyond. And just to give you a little bit of a clue, it was me, Barry. Also, the same person who spoke about all of that also goes on to talk about the axed Batfleck movie. In other news, believe it or not, there's still some hope for the AYER cut if you really want to see that. So we're going to get into that towards the end of the video. And of course, another update on the strikes. It's not looking great with regards to what happened only a couple of days ago. Of course, we'd absolutely love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. But let's get into the article from Inverse here. So the article initially goes on to talk about the missed opportunities in the Snyderverse, or no, quite as disappointing as the fate of The Flash, which finally arrived after years of delays only to flop hard with fans and critics alike. But it didn't have to be that way, and that perhaps no one knows better than Jay Oliva, a storyboard artist on several DCEU movies who also directed the acclaimed DC animated film Flashpoint Paradox. So here, Oliva goes on to reveal the studio's original plan for an entire Flash trilogy leading up to a Flashpoint crossover, along with the surprise Flash villain who would have been pulling the strings all along the entire DCEU. When Warner Brothers decided to make a live-action Flash movie, Oliva was involved right from the start. I worked with Seth Grahame-Smith, the first director who was attached to The Flash. I did a storyboard for him, I did that test. I don't think I ever saw it, but it got the green light for the movie. But as we know, with The Flash's rocky ass road to coming to fruition, when Grahame-Smith left the project in 2016 over creative differences, Oliva stuck around and Rick Famuyiwa came aboard as the new director. So this is the second director of The Flash. So I worked with Rick for like 6 or 7 months on that Flash movie, right up until Rick left in October 2017. Oliva says, the cast was in London, they were building sets. When Rick left, I switched gears and did the reshoots for the ending of Wonder Woman. Rick's movie wasn't the Flashpoint movie, so of what it is now with Andy Muschietti. Originally, there was supposed to be just Zack's 5 films and 1 side movie, which ended up being Suicide Squad. But after the success of Man of Steel, Warner's decided to go all in on its cinematic universe. Rick's movie was going to be a series of films, just like Aquaman, Aquaman 1, 2, and 3. I think all of those films, they were planning to be trilogies. The Flash movies would have been particularly important to the DCEU, however, because of a plan to introduce a classic DC villain, Eobard Thawne, aka Professor Zoom or Reverse Flash. So what I'm about to read out next, given where things were going in Snyder's universe at the time, Rick's version of the Flash movie would have turned into like 3 movies, just like how, you know, we have Aquaman 1, 2, even though I don't think we're going to get a 3 anymore. But either way, this is all about the vision of back then and what really could have ended up happening at one point in time. So Rick's movie was laying down the groundwork for Zoom as the big baddie of the DC universe. It was Professor Zoom pulling the strings because he had come from the future to basically with Barry. In the Flash movies, Zoom would have been the villain in the background, but also the ancillary other films. You would see some of the influences of Zoom on the rest of the Justice League. So that's pretty nuts if you really think about it, because at this period of time we were still going into the Snyderverse. We were still going into the Justice League movie, Darkseid, and everything like that. But with Rick's groundwork for the Flash, or his version of the Flash movie at the time, it would have, laid down the groundwork for Zoom, Eobard Thawne, Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash. All in true Eobard fashion, as he mentions, coming from the future to screw with Barry. And while in Rick's movies, he would have been kind of a villain or in the background villain, he would have also been the puppet master of what's going on in the larger Snyderverse with the other Justice League characters. And this has led people to be like, okay, so given that he said, like, you would see some of the influences of Zoom/Reverse Flash on the rest of the Justice League. Even though whatever influences and what they would have been, we didn't know they were Thawne at the time, it would have turned out at some point in time in the future, he would have basically have done a it was me, Barry, hence the whole meme of that. And some fans have already got some theories going as to what some of these influences by Eobard Thawne could have been. And I quite like this post from Walt here on Twitter saying, as for the influence from Thawne on Superman, set off the scout ship signal for Zod, which, you know, kind of does make sense, because I do get what some people are saying here with regards to, well, doesn't this not necessarily undermine, but what's the point in building up to Darkseid technically if it was just Thawne? And I think the major thing about it is that all of that still happens. It doesn't make Darkseid any less of a big bad threat. It's just that Eobard was the manipulator to serve these events up. Again, all coming back to being about screwing with Barry. Now, you may be like, but that's not directly screwing with Barry, is it? But it kind of is, because you have obviously everything surrounding Barry's life, like his friends in the Justice League. All of this happening does come back to screwing Barry over. So, setting off the scout ship signal for Zod to come to Earth, for Superman to then reveal himself, for then Superman to eventually go on to die because you have Lex Luthor use Zod's body to create the little proto-Doomsday or whatever the hell that was going to be. And then Superman dies to set off the trigger for Darkseid to hit. Do you see what I mean? It serves that ripple effect for Darkseid to come to Earth. But technically, Thawne, this could have been one of the influences, setting off the scout ship signal for Zod. Batman gave Joker Robin's location. Now, as for Wonder Woman, Reverse Flash could have led the Germans to their Themyscira to kill Antiope. I think that's how you say the name, isn't it? Antiope. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Cyborg made the truck run a light to kill Victor's mum. Damn. Aquaman, Reverse Flash could either cause Volko or Thomas's death. And then Flash, everything, right? I mean, it was me, Barry. Now, obviously, I do need to heavily stress this is complete speculation on what the influences of Eobard Thawne could have been in the movies of the DCEU before we found out in the future for sure what they would have been. But let me know what you think they could have been. I keep seeing expansion out there, like what if Thawne told Lex Luthor in the Snyderverse what was coming, so he wanted to go on to gather the Legion of Doom. There's probably other things that you might think of which could have been Thawne influenced. Now, the Inverse article goes on to say that all of this, like this would have all come to a head in a Flashpoint movie, which Zack Snyder revealed previously at a 2019 fan screening would have wrapped up his Superman-focused saga and served as a reboot for the entire franchise. So at the ending of Zack's Darkseid quadrilogy, or whatever, we would have ended up with a Justice League Unlimited version of the Snyderverse. And then you flip it. You do Flashpoint Paradox. Everybody whose friends are now enemies, and it's a world that you don't want to live in. You can reboot the universe and introduce a new cast that way, because after 10 years, the actors need to go on to something else. So I find this quite interesting. You know, a lot of people are saying now, and, you know, it is easy to say this, but it is true that this Snyderverse would have, you know, carried on its story, become complete, and then they would have ended with a Flashpoint movie. So they would have done Flash solo movies, as we've already been over, just like the other solo movies, like the Batfleck movie, the Aquaman movies, the Wonder Woman movies, but to reset everything at the end, or like it would have all come to a head after the Darkseid stuff, after everything, after the Flash solo movies, Barry would have been like, right, I'm running back in time to save my mum. And then, to be honest, we could have got the "it was me, Barry" moment towards the end, given the Flashpoint story. Let me know what you think of that, guys. I mean, I don't know how to feel about it. A part of me likes it, or just likes how Eobard Thawne it is to go back and have an influence on some of the events that we could have seen in the Snyderverse, or that we did see, to be honest. I think what it comes down to for me is maybe like one or two things, but, you know, let's just say we go back to that list. Thawne giving Joker Robin's location, or, you know, Cyborg made the truck run a light to kill Victor's mom. Like everything being down, like every kind of tragedy in the DC universe, like Robin dying, Cyborg becoming Cyborg, losing his mother, Clark becoming Superman because Zod is coming to Earth, to other things, all because of Eobard Thawne wanting to just mess with the timeline, to mess with Barry ultimately on the bottom line. I don't know if I would have liked everything, but it would have been really cool for the original plan to include the Reverse Flash in some way, shape, or form, have him in the background of the Flash solo movies that we would have got, but also then, yeah, fair enough, be revealed to have also had some influence on maybe other things that could have happened. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm a big Reverse Flash fanboy, so knowing that this kind of was in the cards in some way, shape, or form, you know, hypothetically back in the day, but it just never came to be, sounds like, ooh, there could have been some real potential there. But I think I would need to think about it some more before, as it says here, Rick's movie was laying down the groundwork for Zoom as the big baddie of the DC universe. So, like, you thought Darkseid was the big baddie? Well, technically, even though he was, there's a guy behind the curtain there still saying, it was me, everyone. It was me that brought Darkseid. You know, all of it would have been him. So what do you think? And speaking of Jay Oliva, of which there seems to be quite a few news stories coming out recently, there's more because Ben Affleck's axed Batman movie was f***ing awesome and built on 80 years of mythos, says storyboard artist. It was the best. So it turns out this is actually, once again, from Inverse. It's just that Variety decided to recycle this story here, in that he was developing his own Batman movie, as we all know, to direct and star in before deciding to exit the role. But what he does have to say about it is, well, I can't really say too much, other than it was f***ing awesome. It was the best. It was amazing. From my understanding, there were a couple of drafts of it. When I was brought on, I don't know whether it was a second draft or something, but it was what Jeff Johns and Ben Affleck had shown me. I've worked on a lot of Batman things, and what was really cool about it was it was tying together a lot of really cool Batman storylines that had never really been explored. Ben's story was going to cover something that had never really been covered in comics, but was building off of storylines in the Batman mythos over the last 80 years and approaching it from a new kind of perspective. It was very clear that there were a lot of things about it that I really loved, and I wish that had come to fruition. It was a really great project in the beginning. Ben had to step away for personal reasons, and I totally understood, but the time that I spent with Ben working together on the project was fantastic. Maybe someday I can spill the beans, but I still can't talk about it. I wonder why he still can't talk about it. So from the main takeaway of this, nothing really brand new other than Jay Oliva just saying how amazing it was and how it was just going to cover stuff that had never really been covered before. Obviously, that remains to be seen. I mean, I know a lot of you guys, me included, want to see or would have loved to have seen where that would have gone. We've also, you know, heard how apparently Deathstroke was going to be in a version of the movie and dismantling Bruce Wayne's life for revenge on how apparently Deathstroke lost his son, and somehow in some way Bruce Wayne had something to do with that. I can't remember if that's connected to the version of the movie with the Arkham plot. I mean, for all I know, Deathstroke would have somehow led Batman to Arkham Asylum because there might have been a bunch of prisoners sprung loose, so Batman feels forced to go there given how dangerous that is, but it's all a part of the completely cracking Bruce and Batman to his core because of whatever he did to Deathstroke's son, or how he was involved in that in some way, shape, or form. So if, like, that was a part of the sequence of events in that movie where Deathstroke brings Bruce, it's like maybe the final part where you go into Arkham, and now you've got all of this to deal with, and he's breaking him down. That would have been really cool. But either way, guys, let me know what you think of these first two stories with regards to the Snyderverse. But actually, it's not over there. It really isn't over there. We also have a little teeny tiny update from David Ayer. All I know is my unseen film plays much better than the studio release. The interest in my cut being shown seems real and organic, and Gunn told me it would have its time to be shared. He absolutely deserves to launch his DC without more drama about old projects. In a way, I'm chained to this thing. I'm riding a tiger here and navigating this situation the best I can. Life is a very strange journey. Welcome to my TED Talk. So I think he's saying in the latter there, like, don't get me wrong, let him launch his DCU. Maybe let a lot more time go by, because you don't want to advertise, oh, the AYER cut is coming out finally right as Superman Legacy is gearing up. But apparently, I don't see why David Ayer would literally claim this in a statement like that if it didn't have some kind of semblance of truth to it. And he says, and James Gunn told me it would have its time to be shared. So at some point down the road, it might still be a few years away, but at some point in the future, James Gunn has seemed to have kind of given David Ayer the assurance that his version of the Suicide Squad, or should I say Suicide Squad, will be released. You know, if you say it will have its time to be shared, then what else does that mean? So I guess I pass it off to you guys. Do you think this is just a bit of talk, but at the same time, would he really say that unless Gunn hadn't already said to him, like, oh, you know, it will have its time to be shared. Maybe not now, just, you know, I'll try, you know, I'll make that happen. I mean, he is pretty clear-cut with the way he says it, but do you even care? Are you one of the people who really wants to see the version of Suicide Squad, the AYER cut, and I do believe, like 1000% from what we've heard, it will play very, very, very differently to what was actually put into theaters. But at this point, do you care? Or do you actually think, yeah, you know what, I do care. You know, Zack Snyder got his cut out there. That was quite a different cut, obviously. And if the AYER cut is quite different, then why shouldn't that get its time to be shared amongst fans, and for also the director to have his actual vision be seen without studio interruptions and involvement? So, I mean, I would be down for it. I think it should just be marketed as like a, hey, here's a fun Elseworlds release. Finally, the AYER cut is coming out. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And as for the final story today, guys, we have a bit of a negative update on the writer's strike. So I've been trying to do these in my news roundup videos to keep you all in the loop. So bottom line, it's been a few months and there's been no new meetings, no new negotiations to make a better deal. But finally, we had a little bit of hope happening with the WGA and the AMPTP meeting just a few days ago. But as per the headlines that I've only just got around to covering now, WGA and AMPTP can't agree to resume negotiations. Strikes to go on indefinitely. So the thing that you need to bear in mind here, and as what it says in the first line, meeting for the first time in more than 3 months, the Writers Guild and the AMPTP on Friday failed to reach an agreement to resume contract negotiations. So this has been going on for more than 3 months. They finally got round to meeting, but don't forget to bear in mind that this was a meeting to have a meeting to actually negotiate. Does that make sense? So this was a meeting to talk about having the actual negotiating meetings. So we hadn't even got to the next step yet, but it was pretty cool that, you know, they had finally got back to the meeting table. As of now, there is no agreement on these items because the AMPTP said they needed to consult with their member studios before moving forward, the union said in a statement late Friday. Then there was this very interesting statement put out from the WGA negotiating committee. I'm not going to read it all out, but just to give you an idea, there's this part here where first, Carol informed us that the DGA deal would be the deal on any patent issues. She stated that they were willing to increase their offer on a few writer-specific TV minimums and willing to talk about AI. As we all know, they want protection against AI, but that they were not willing to engage on the preservation of the writer's room or success-based residuals. Like, these are very fundamental things that the WGA are striking for. They're still in completely different states of mind. Like the AMPTP, the studios aren't willing to entertain or, you know, begin to negotiate or even entertain the idea of negotiating on the very things that the writers want. Maybe one or two, but yeah, this could be like back and forth for a long, long time. She did not indicate willingness to address screenwriter issues, Appendix A issues, and many of the other proposals that remain on our list. On behalf of the Guild, Ellen reiterated the expectation that all of the fundamental issues over which writers have been striking these past 3 months would be addressed in this new contract, and that no segment of the membership would be left behind. As per the headline, strike to go on indefinitely. And even if they do come to the table again, and the way this kind of got left, as from what we understand right now, the AMPTP said they need to consult with their member studios before moving forward. So they're going to go away and be like, well, guys, the WGA still aren't letting up on, you know, what they want. We told them that we're not, you know, maybe we'll talk about AI, but like, what do we do? And they're either going to say, okay, give them a little bit more leeway. But then the WGA would still probably be at this meeting table saying, well, you're still not willing to talk about this. You're still not willing to talk about this or residuals there. And it's just going to keep going like that until, I guess, the AMPTP give them what they want, or if there is a compromise that gets made. But the WGA really are making it sound like we're not gonna settle for less, or like we're not gonna get some better improvements but then leave all of these other sectors of the union and members out in the dirt, if you know what I mean. You need to kind of do better and give us something more, otherwise we're just gonna keep striking. The AMPTP's thought about this is, well, we need to have a willing bargaining partner, but the WGA's response is, well, you're not even willing to talk about this or that or this or that or this or that in the next meeting. So in conclusion, as you can tell, it's just like we're hitting a wall. I would like to think that they're gonna have another meeting about the negotiating meeting sometime in maybe the near future, but it could very well end up the same way. And more time will keep going by, more time will keep going by. They have another meeting about the meeting. Maybe one or both sides get a bit really bothered about the fact that nobody's getting back to work. Maybe a compromise will be made, but maybe not. There is kind of a weird, calculation going into this from especially the AMPTP side. And the writers' strike side, the only play they've got is like, well, how long can we strike for to, really show them we mean business? And that depends on a lot of things. But the longer the strike goes on, the more it impacts the industry, the more even below the line workers get very, very impacted. And even the writers themselves, like, this isn't easy on them, those who are striking. And how long can they hold out for to acquire these new contracts that they want? Let me know what you guys think of that and everything else we spoke about in today's video. But if you enjoyed this rambly news roundup, guys, I would really appreciate a like as always. Check out my previous video, by the way. It's my top 10 most anticipated DCU projects coming our way. Watch that. Let me know your own top 10 down in that comment section. But until next time, guys, just honestly, thank you so much for watching me today. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see people of the DC universe in the next video. Goodbye.